Hello folks, Phil Gallagher of ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. Today we're going to be playing with a interesting deck list from Fine and Andy, a longtime supporter of the channel, who wanted to see this Goblin Welder food hybrid deck. Let's just kind of start talking because this has a lot of moving parts. So for the food portion of the deck, there is the traditional Osmore combo with Underworld Cookbook and Overchased Daredevil. So the idea is you get an Underworld Cookbook into play, or you get this into play to get the Underworld Cookbook, and then you can tap the Underworld Cookbook and discard a card to create a food token. Well, when you discard Overchased Daredevil, you make an artifact from the cookbook, right? Meaning that you get this back. So you can use this to slowly create a stream of infinite food. Now, this is sort of portion one of the deck. And when I've played food-focused decks in the past, they just were too slow at closing out the game. Like, they did a bunch of stuff, but actually winning the game was hard. And so Urza Saga is one way to close out the game by creating large artifacts that are just buffed by these foods, which are artifacts. And this deck is seeking to have another portion of a package that can help close out the game with Goblin Welders and Goblin Engineers to bring back artifacts from the graveyard. Now, unfortunately, much of what this deck is doing is not going to be fast. So if you take a look, there are, cards that hardly see Legacy play anymore because they're just too slow. Tanglewire and Smokestack are incredibly powerful effects, but they are slow. So these are going to kind of serve as our lock piece. Kind of think of them as sort of the equivalent of like a Chalice of the Void or Thorn of Amethyst effect for this deck. But they're going to be repeatable and reusable and sort of controllable via Goblin Welder and Goblin Engineer. And sometimes we'll be able to cheat things like that into play very early with something like a Faithless Looting. Now, there are a couple of ways to actually close out a game faster using like a Goblin Welder. And that's Angel of the Ruins. So this is something with plains cycling. So you can pay 2 mana, cycle this, go pull like a plateau or a scrubland from your deck. And then this thing's in the graveyard, right? And you can just bring it back with a Goblin Welder. Notably here, Goblin Welder and Goblin Engineer do have different text. So Goblin Engineer will not allow you to bring back something big and scary like an Angel of the Ruins or a God Pharaoh statue. That's purely in the realm of Goblin Welder, but Goblin Engineer can go and search for something and put it in the graveyard in the first place. As far as the sideboard goes, there is something that I think is very important to this deck in the sideboard, and that's Gear Up or Aether Grid. This is a card that I absolutely love. I think this card is very fun to play with, and it's skill testing as well, because you have to decide, like, am I going to control the board and kill these creatures, or is this going to start just going to the dome and just be like a slow burn laser to the face? And honestly, with the pile of food that we have, it might be a quick burn. So I really love that this thing exists, so for our slower matchups, we have another alternate win condition. And I also want to highlight Rip Apart in case you aren't familiar with this. So this is a modal sorcery. It either deals 5 damage to a creature or planeswalker, or destroys an artifact or enchantment. I am not entirely sure whether or not some of these things like Rip Apart and Wear Tear are actually better than just like playing some prismatic endings. The issue here is that, like, if we just take a quick look at the mana base for this deck is red focused rather than white focused. So like, given that, I am not sure how good prismatic ending would be. The answer is probably yeah, still it would probably be fine. But I'm not going to mess with the deck list as submitted. That is one thing that I would think about though if you want to like try this deck out in the future. Anyway, if you're new here, please consider subscribing for Legacy Modern and vintage content on the regular. If you're a normal follower, please throw me a like before this video gets started. That's the easiest way to support my content for free and one of the biggest predictors of success. And if you have any sorts of ideas for other things that could go in this deck, let me know. There is I think it's like a red cycling creature that's relatively large. That's also an artifact that, like, it could fill a similar role to Angel of the Ruins. I think it like draws some cards or something when it attacks. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Let me know if you know what I'm talking about, because I could not remember in this deck tech. All right, anyway, let's get to round 1 and just see how this deck plays out. Okay, first opening hand here is kind of mediocre. I can make a lot of artifacts, but essentially if my opponent does anything quickly that I need to deal with, I don't have real interaction for it. I think I could get a hand of this power level or better very easily by mulliganing. I like this hand, I think. I get to do the Osmore cookbook thing. Yeah, I'll keep this. I think I'm going to pitch the Tangle Wire here and keep the Soul Guide Lantern on the off chance that the Soul Guide Lantern is just something like game winning. Okay. So we're probably playing against Doomsday, because that's how Underground Sea tends to work these days. In which case, my hand is probably not fast enough to do anything relevant here. Not that the Urza Saga hand would have been either. Mox Opal, does that change things? Not immediately. This turn's a little hard to play out because I have to decide whether or not I'm gonna have 2 red mana on turn 2. Actually, no, I've got a way I can play this here that I like. I can go Soul Guide Lantern here and just use that to junk that Ponder. That part doesn't matter. Use a second mana to do Underworld Cookbook. That gives me Mox Opal, which now has Metalcraft. I can go ahead and discard a card here. I'm just gonna junk the Faithless Looting. That gives me food. Now I can cast Osmore. That's disappointing. Yuriko. Okay, we're playing against ninjas. We're gonna be stone cold dead here. I was pretty all in on this resolving. It would have been very good. But like my best line from here is going to be to flashback of Faithless Looting unless I top deck well. That's not great for me. Okay. So that is just going to represent a 4/4. Okay, that's a fantastic top deck. I guess I'll do this off the Urza Saga. I think I'm always just playing that this turn. I see. Will that be worth 2 life to cycle now? Some amount of the time it is. Like, especially if I just, like, grab a plateau. Oh, right, it's not real cycling, it's plain cycling. Yeah, that could have waited then. Okay, so my opponent did not immediately go for just increasing the size of this thing, so they have a ninja in hand. That means I get to start drawing cards. Alright, is it Yuriko or the Infiltrator? It's the Infiltrator. That's fine. This one's not too scary because I can make constructs that are just going to be bigger than this. And honestly, I will probably end up discarding my Arid Mesa at my end step to just make my construct tokens 1 bigger. Oh, blue over black? Oh, nope, never mind. Just mistap. Yeah, that's more like what I was expecting. So let's turn this into a food. Again, if we win this game, it's because of very large constructs. All right, so this is 2 mana that goes towards this. I need 3 mana to do the Tangle Wire thing. Do I play this land? I think I'll play this land. There's like Faithless Looting to think about, but I think I'm good with this. Sure. So my opponent's going to be looking for a removal spell for my Urza Saga tokens. They're going to be default 5/5s, and I can make them bigger at any moment. Okay. Because of the Retrofitter Foundry, things are going to be a little tricky. Probably means that they have removal for at least the first token here, because they're attacking in with this. Ground in the Lock, Petty Theft, sure. Alright. So, the Ingenious Infiltrator does trigger for every ninja. So that means the Changeling Outcast does also draw them a card. That's why they're choosing to not convert it. But honestly, I kind of think that converting is good here. Ooh. That's pretty useful. That does probably mean that I have to take damage off the Ancient Tomb. I think that's going to be fine. The flyer is a bit of an issue. Why would you show me that you can do this now instead of just waiting? Oh, Pithing Needle. Pithing Needle is why. Alright, that's fair. Is that what I'm doing? Yeah, that's what I'm doing. We'll Needle the Retrofitter Foundry. Need to discard a card. I'll discard a Tangle Wire, which lets me play Osmore, which gets me a new Underworld Cookbook. which I'm not sure if I play. Uh, um, like it can just become a food, which essentially is a removal spell. Um, yeah, I think I'm gonna hold this. Like this being a 7/7 is enough, and this is going to be 2 removal spells. Yeah, we'll hold here. So this is 6 damage to itself. Okay. So as long as it's before blockers, I can kill this safely if that's something that I want to kill. I think I'm okay killing it. My opponent can't retrofit or foundry right now. This does decrease the size of my construct, but as long as it's bigger than a 4/4, I think that's fine. Okay. That's fine. It's inconvenient for me. Because like now I don't have a long-term plan for this Brazen Borrower, which kills me in 3 shots, even if the ground is stalled. All right. My opponent has enough permanents that I don't think Tangle Wire is actively good. I think I might need to cast this Faithless Looting and try to find something else to do. I kind of hate how this is going, but I need something like a Goblin Welder. All right. All this stuff is just going to be so slow. Like Smokestack and Tangle Wire just kind of do nothing here because I'm just too close to death. All right. We'll discard both of those. I will play a new Asmore, and now I will have an answer to this Brazen Borrower. This is my last... Oh no, I still have one more cookbook in there beyond this. I only have 1 food. When do I make this? Yes, I'll make it at my opponent's upkeep, question mark. Or if they use their mana to Brazen Borrower, then I'll make my food then. Alright. I'll discard for a cookbook. I am just going to immediately nuke this. Quite sure I want to do that. I really need an Overchase Daredevil. Like, that will give me the oomph that I need to get through this. But right now, like, my construct will trade with my opponent's construct if I block, and then I won't really be in good shape. My average top deck is probably on par with my opponent's, because, like, a lot of their cards are going to be kind of weak right now. But they have cantrips for selection, whereas I really don't. I just have, like, Faithless Looting, and I'm going to have... Like, my Tangle Wires and Smokestacks aren't really going to be good. But, like, a Goblin Welder would be insane. Yeah, I think I'm obligated to make that trade, unfortunately. And my opponent gets into the position where, like, some of just their big, dumb, fat stuff ends up being fine. That's a way to get some damage in. Oh my god. That is fantastic. Alright. So, I cast a cookbook. I start doing the thing. We're going to need to always yield to some stuff. I don't think always yielding to this actually works the way I want it to. Alright, so I will make my second food. Yeah, I have to continuously say yes to that. Am I to the point where I start attacking? I don't think I am yet. I think I'm going to wait another turn cycle or so. Because I want to be able to block this if my opponent attacks in with it, and then kill whatever they would put in with an Ornithopter. Alright. Tell me what you got. Okay. Now, things get weird if my opponent's last card is another ninja. Then I would try to remove this, and they would just, like, bounce again. Oh, wait, hold on. This is 5 damage, 6 damage to itself. Yeah, that should be fine. I'm going to go ahead and go for it. Okay. I wouldn't need to fetch if it was another ninja. What is that? Okay. Oh, was that a desperation attack? Like, this is a bluff? Oh, yeah, that was a bluff. Okay, good stuff. Thank you, Overchase Daredevil. I don't know that I literally had another turn to wait. Okay, what do I want? Rip Apart destroys creatures, and also things like Retrofit or Foundry. That sounds great. Ether Grid sounds great. Pyroblast sounds great. I don't think I'll want to go Wear Tear levels of deep. Soul Guide Lantern isn't particularly appealing here. My opponent's not usually mucking around with their graveyard much. Tangle Wire and Smokestack are slow. I'll probably keep some amount of this, but not much of it. So, opponent could, like, randomly make Thopters and stuff, which makes these cards much worse. I think I'm going to keep a Tangle Wire in, because Tangle Wire is returnable via Goblin Engineer, and Smokestack is not. I think that's the direction that I'm gonna take this here. Okay, I'm gonna be keeping my opening hand here. I have a couple of different angles that I can attack from. So I can choose to do the just like turn 1 Urza Saga, turn 2 Ancient Tomb route. I can choose to go the turn 1 Goblin Welder, turn 2 God Pharaoh statue route. And if I end up getting a cookbook into play, I can just make a bajillion D food. I think I'm gonna go the Goblin Welder route. Yeah, that's fine. Ooh, wow. Like Goblin Welder into just turn 2 God Pharaoh statue is really cool. Uh I'm not going to spend too long thinking about whether or not that's the correct play, because it is most certainly the fun play, and I'm here for it. Oh, opponent hates fun. That's fine. Like, I'll play a Faithless Looting next turn, and then probably play Urza Saga. There's also a world where I can just, like, potentially cast a God Pharaoh statue in the not-too-distant future. That is a lot of Urza Saga, holy moly. Alright, let's Faithless Looting, and we can bin some of this stuff. Yeah, we'll bin the Overchase Daredevil and the God Pharaoh statue here, and then start working towards some very large constructs. We'll see whether my opponent goes for the, like, I am a 4/4, I am going to hit you plan, or whether or not ninjas are in my future. Seems like ninjas are in my future. And that's fine. Like, the ninjas kill me. Oh, wow, that's surprising. Huh. Where's my opponent's head at? Because they didn't want to just turn this into a 4/4 immediately. So, this a ponder looking for a fatal push to kill this construct? Alright. I think I just play Ancient Tomb here so I can hold up a Pyroblast for if this does turn into a ninja next turn. Ponder shuffled. Just BTW. Alright. Alright, another basic. Alright, in it comes. Do you have the ninja this turn? I do not have the ninja this turn. This is very strange to me. Notably, this says, creature cards in graveyards and libraries can't enter the battlefield. Players can't cast spells from graveyards or libraries. That's fine. I can still get a God Pharaoh statue back from graveyard. Alright. Urza Saga. Overchase Daredevil still goes back to my hand. Okay. Mox Opal is totally legit here. Make a new construct. Yeah, that's fine. So I could grab the cookbook and start doing the Overchase Daredevil thing, but I think it's better to just shut off that Retrofitter Foundry. Alright. I'll get a Mox Opal for more mana. I'll play out a new Urza Saga to keep my construct stream going. And then I think I'll just crush in for 5. Can't flash back the Faithless Looting that's in my graveyard because of Grafdigger's Cage. But honestly, I don't know that I would flash it back anyway. I think holding up this Pyroblast is really good. Sure, that's fine. Alright. Oh, that's a cookbook. Beautiful. Alright. I play a cookbook. Play Great Furnace over Urza Saga? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Great Furnace increases the power more quickly. These are already going to be 7/7s this turn. Oh, maybe it is supposed to be just another Urza Saga. Alright, let's crash in with both of these. Yep, and then we'll do some stuff. There's another dude. Discard the Overchase Daredevil. Alright, so these are 8/8s. My opponent goes to 6. Should pretty easily have lethal next turn. And I have a Pyroblast for something just absolutely fucking crazy, like, say, a Dress Down. I'll let that resolve. I think it's very justifiable to counter that here. But, like, I'm probably already beating things like single target removal spells. And these things are already out of range of something nuts like a Toxic Deluge. So, like, I want to have this Pyroblast available for if my opponent is playing something like a Dress Down that is just going to, like, kill all my stuff at once. Sure. Okay, now that my opponent has made their land drop already, right? Yeah, they've already played Delta. I'm out of the point where I need to play Dress Down. I'll just kill this. I can't think of anything that beats me from here. Yep, alright, good stuff. Okay, I'm going to keep this opening hand. It has an Urza Saga and an Ancient Tomb, which that alone makes the opening hand keepable. But we also have some decent potential for other things to happen. there's some assorted weird things that could happen here. A lot of them involve like me choosing to play Tangle Wire on turn 2. I think I'm just going to go ahead and work on growing my Urza Saga constructs as quickly as possible. And just like making it so that these won't be lightning boltable. So I make this, it's a 3/3 base, and then if I discard, I don't know. Probably the engineer? I don't know, I already have land drops represented here and here. The engineer is useful, like bringing back Tangle Wire repeatedly is probably going to be crippling in this matchup. No. I'm going to go ahead and discard the engineer, though. Alright, so I have immediately made a 4/4. My opponent could do something like trade a Ragavan and a Lightning Bolt for it, but I would probably consider that a win. Like, scariest line for me would probably involve my opponent, like Ragavan attacking in, Lightning Bolting Construct, and Wastelanding my Urza Saga. Then I would feel behind. Otherwise, I think I'm pretty good. Okay. I've avoided most of the worst case scenarios here. Alright, seems like my opponent does have the Lightning Bolt, and they're going to attempt to make that trade. Oh, do I want to make... Do I want to make them make that trade? Just like make these both 5/5s, 6/6s, 7/7s. Nah. You can have your 2 damage and your treasure. Okay. I don't think you're gonna play that this turn. Okay. What you got cooking? Scariest thing could be like double Dragon Rage Channeler or something like that. Oh, they just straight up had 2 Lightning Bolts in hand. Oh, Unholy Heat, sure. That's not bad. What am I grabbing here? Pyrite Spellbomb, kill their Ragavan. Soul Guide Lantern, make it so that Murktide is less scary. Turn got really hard all of a sudden. I think I like Soul Guide Lantern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I don't need to do this yet. Yeah, because the easiest way I'll lose right now is just my opponent getting a Murktide Regent into play in this turn cycle. I think if I avoid that, I'm good. Sure, that's fine. My opponent plays and cracks a fetch land here. I think it's time for me to nuke their graveyard with Soul Guide Lantern. Ooh, that is inconvenient. Alright, do I want to just turn this angel into a food? I think so. It's kind of close, though. Alright, that is a lot of Tangle Wire. Alright, so I will play a Tangle Wire. This Force of Will is pretty bad for me. I planned on attacking, and then, like, using the Tangle Wire to tap down all of my opponent's permanents and, like, treat that as a time walk. Now I have to decide whether or not I'm staying on the defensive with this construct or whether I'm going to try to just kill my opponent. I think letting them attack in with the Ragavan's bad. I think I am just going to go ahead and nuke my opponent's graveyard, reset that. Although technically I probably should have waited until my opponent's upkeep to do that in case they do something like Lightning Bolt me or Brainstorm in the end step. Alright. Both of us have some pretty powerful things going on here. Alright, I resolve one of these, I would prefer it to be the Tangle Wire, I guess. Yeah, I'd prefer it to be the Tangle Wire if I just do one of these. We'll play the Tangle Wire around days. This second cookbook doesn't really mean anything to me. I'm going to go ahead and play it out accordingly. And I'm just going to chill. I'm hoping that I have inevitability here over my opponent. I'm going to make a Urza Saga Construct token here and make pretty good use of their permanents, but then it'll kind of tap down everything else. Alright, so now we're in their main phase, and their Urza Saga ability is going off. I don't expect them to have anything too crazy here, but something like a Retrofitter Foundry is likely, and that will make things like my Tangle Wire and Smokestack worse. Oh, a Relic of Progenitus. Okay. So this is the one that removes the fading counter. I want to resolve that first. And I'll tap down 3 things. Be like a Tangle Wire, a cookbook, and a food or something like that. Okay. Yeah, I think I need to hold this back, unfortunately. I'm also probably just going to convert this Ancient Tomb into a food. I also could sacrifice the cookbook to return a goblin engineer to my hand. I don't really think that's great, though. Like, the goblin engineer can recur Tanglewire or Soul Guide Lantern. I guess that's like a thing. I don't think I want to go that route. I think it's more useful to keep some of this stuff around for other purposes. I think I'm on a bit of a slippery slope towards losing here. My opponent just has more bodies, despite the fact that I have the larger body, and oh fuck, that's really good. Welp. Let's gain a little life here. Yeah, and now I'm gonna lose this. Do this spell bomb. And take 5. Plus my opponent is going to grow their stuff by having a treasure token. Yeah, I'm just dead next turn, essentially. If I don't draw something that impacts the board. Well, let's tap down the Tanglewire and I guess one of these cookbooks. Goblin Engineer. I can cast this and put my Ensnaring Bridge into my graveyard. But I don't think this is going to make it around. Like, my opponent's just going to tap down 2 of their lands, or like Relic and a land. And then they're going to attack in for 10. I'm obligated to make a block on a construct so I don't die. I'll take 6, go to 2, and go up to 3 by cracking a food. I'm still going to be dead to like a lightning bolt effect. I don't know, maybe I need to leave the Ensnaring Bridge in the deck so I can top deck it instead. That might be better than like playing towards my opponent making an like very obvious tactical error. I still do just think I'm dead this turn cycle, though. No, just feel like I'm going to get lightning bolted. Ooh, did not get lightning bolted. Tapping down 4 of their permanents isn't going to do it. GG's. Ugh, Aether Spellbomb. That got me good. Alright. I think my smokestacks are too slow here. I mean, they're probably just too slow in Legacy in general, if I'm being honest. So I probably don't want these. I probably don't want the Pithing Needle. I probably do want Fire Blast, Ether Grid, Rip Apart. I'll need to board out 3 more cards here. Those will probably just be Tangle Wires. And I think I like a lot of the rest of what's going on. I could consider boarding in the Trinisphere over the Tangle Wire. But Trinisphere is kind of whatever. Alright, opening hand has no colored mana here. This hand isn't good enough to make that work. This has to be a mulligan. This is not a good hand. This is a hand that does not have a plan. That said, I am on 6 cards versus Delver. Is this fine, given that information? Probably. I'm going to keep this, pitch the Soul Guide Lantern, and I'll hope to do something cool with this Goblin Welder plus Faithless Looting. Alright, so I don't think my opponent has a counterspell in hand, but they could just have a Lightning Bolt to take this out. Ooh. Jesus, that's awkward. That's so awkward. YOLO? I believe YOLO. Come on, God Pharaoh statue. Fuck. This is exceptionally bad. Yeah, this is horrendous. I'm gonna go ahead and cast this Mox Opal. Like, and I'm not gonna use the Rip Apart on the Relic of Progenitus, just in case someone starts asking about that. I know that is a thing that I can do, but I don't think that's a thing that leads to me actually ending up winning the game. Like, I am going to need to remove that first Ragavan or Dragon Rage Channeler or whatever very, very, very badly, because I have no plan to win the game. Like, my best plan right now is, like, fetch to put another permanent into the graveyard, and then, like, flashback a Faithless Looting. See if my opponent pops the Relic so that I can't flashback Faithless Looting. Okay. So they can gain the... Oh, nope, they're not going for it. They could have gained the ability to stop me from flashing back Faithless Looting there. Ooh. Yeah, let's see if I can get them to do the thing here. This seems like it's a good enough position to pop the Relic for. And then long term, I'll try to win the game with this Ensnaring Bridge. Yes. Okay, yep, that's fine. You can fizzle that ability. That's bad. That's worse. Rip Apart notably is a sorcery, so that will not kill a Dash Dragavan, even if I have mana available. Ah, shit. One of their best possible hits. Not turned on yet, but it will be. I am not willing to cast this Ether Grid until I can do it around a Daze. I think I am willing to play Ensnaring Bridge into Daze because I can just bring it back immediately, unless my opponent has like Daze plus Lightning Bolt to like Lightning Bolt this now and then Daze this Ensnaring Bridge. Okay, we're good to go. I'm just gonna leave the Welder back. It represents a block on a Ragavan. Alright, so my opponent's base size Urza construct token is going to be larger than my Ensnaring Bridge a good portion of the time. Okay, they're dashing. That's valid. I'll lose this Great Furnace. That's going to be a blow, because that'll make it a... Well, I could lose the Plateau. But I think the Great Furnace is much more threatening here. It represents Metalcraft, which also gives me white mana. Okay, that's fine. Also, I really want to play this Ether Grid around a Daze. It's so game-winning if it resolves in a position kind of like this one. The drawing an artifact land would be pretty clutch. Yeah, alright. I want to play this Underworld Cookbook. I can use this to discard my Rip Apart. Oh, yeah. Is it better to just nuke my opponent's Urza Saga here with Rip Apart? I won't be doing that around a Daze. I think I like it. This just keeps my opponent from getting something out of their deck. And they might have more interesting things in the post-sideboard games. You know, your Pithing Needles and such. Okay, nice. Now, notably, my opponent does have 6 cards. Now 7 after their draw step. Fuck. They got a lot going on. Some of these things I've invalidated with an Ensnaring Bridge, but like I already know that my opponent has some stuff in their deck, like Brazen Borrower, that does represent at least a temporary answer to this stuff. Alright, I'm gonna continue to try to play patiently here and not run out this Ether Grid into a Daze. I just think that's so important. Okay, Unholy Heat is fine. Obviously good. Also, if I can save the Ether Grid for another turn cycle until like Urza's Saga has already tutored, that's also probably important here. This is awkward. I can cast my Faithless Looting from Graveyard. No, I'm gonna cast my Faithless Looting from Graveyard and try to hit a land drop. I want to turn this Faithless Looting into a land. That did not succeed. I discard Faithless Looting and Goblin Engineer. And like now I have to decide, like, do I want to try to save this and use this as removal? Or am I just going to like avoid a Ragavan attack? I don't have to make that decision now. Yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and just turn this into a food. Like the constructs that my opponent is going to have are likely to just like get out of the range of Osmore killing them anyway. Like this thing only lets me deal 6 damage, and these are already 6/6s. Yeah. So as of next turn, Osmore is no longer removal for these things. Alright. Trying so hard to play around Daze that I'm probably just giving my opponent enough time to find Force of Will or like Brazen Borrower and just end this. Ooh. Alright, so I'll make my land drop. I can now play around Daze. I now have the Overchase Daredevil engine going as well. But I am just going to die to like a Brazen Borrower type card. Or an Abrade. Sure. This Ether Grid represents the easiest way for me to win with my own Ensnaring Bridge in play. It also just gives me a lot of slack because, like, once I can ping Ragavans down, I eliminate a lot of threats that I have to worry about, and I can start maybe keeping some cards in hand. Okay. I can now play Aether Grid around Daze. Do I want to play it around Double Daze? Or do I want to use Ancient Tomb to start repeatedly making stuff with Overchase Daredevil? I think I want to be able to play around like a Double Daze or like Spell Pierce or something. This card is really important. Alright, here we go. Force of Will or Force of Negation does it. My opponent has had plenty of turns to sculpt. This may not work. Quite good if it does. Eh. Alright, hard cast Force of Negation. Sure. Now, long term, I can be thinking about using the Underworld Cookbook to get one of my creatures back from my graveyard. The Goblin Welder in particular would be pretty good. It's an Overchase Daredevil. Which I guess I could just like hardcast, right? I could just hardcast one of these. Let's discard this, make a food token. That's going to return both of these to my hand. And now I do have a Mox Opal. Let's just hardcast one of these and treat it as a repeatable blocker. And then I still make it so that the Ragavans can't attack. I don't exactly want to Overchase Daredevils right now, because it becomes a... Oh, yeah, that's a 1/1 that could attack in. This is a good reason to have a blocker. Yeah, I don't exactly want two Overchase Daredevils, like, floating in my hand, like, that I have to consistently worry about. Because, like, I have to keep blockers for Ensnaring Bridge. And, like, I need to keep my Ensnaring Bridge count kind of low. Alright. Let's play this. Do this thing. And return the Overchase Daredevil back to my hand after getting a food. Now... Yeah, I think I just chill with this second one and use it for health. My opponent Pithing Needles, then I have to think about hardcasting this. I also, like, theoretically, at some point need to answer the Retrofitter Foundry, or my opponent can make a large number of 1/1 tokens and then go wide of me. Alright, so here's a new construct. Again, if this Ensnaring Bridge ever leaves play, I am super screwed. I guess this Urza Saga represents a Pithing Needle on Retrofitter Foundry. Ooh, Aether Spellbomb can bounce this back to my hand and allow my opponent to attack in with a Ragavan at some point. That's interesting. Do I want to eat some food? No? No. It seems like if my opponent gets in, I'm just gonna die. Hello. Hello. Attempt an Aether Grid, huh? Ooh. Alright. Alright, I think I'll just go ahead and chill here. Oh no, don't do it. Okay, that's fine. Opponent has like 30 cards left in their deck. At some point, they will find a Brazen Borrower. Do my Urza Saga Construct tokens actually really matter? My opponent has more? Probably not. I think I'm going to go ahead and return a Goblin Welder in hand so I can play around an Abrade type effect. Because, like, an Abrade or Brazen Borrower is going to be the sort of thing that beats me. Alright. And Osmore. That's good. Okay, so just quick check. This is 1 red mana, this is 2 red mana, then I'll be down to 1 card in hand. That's fine. Do this thing. I think the Retrofitter Foundry is scarier than the Aether Spellbomb. Pithing Needle? Shit, I boarded the Pithing Needle out. Okay. I guess I'll grab another cookbook then. Okay. Let's do this thing. Then I've discarded a card. So I'll cast an Osmore. Grabs me a new Underworld Cookbook, which I'll cast in a second. I'll play a Goblin Welder. Gives me that Ensnaring Bridge redundancy that I need. Nope. Hardcast Force. Hardcast Force. Again, I don't think my life total is super relevant. Like, I am going to be dead or not dead, and there's not going to be any in-betweens there. Yeah. These are the sorts of things that are scary. Because everything that digs my opponent towards that Brazen Borrower is horrifying. And I presume there are other answers to this bridge as well. Okay. Yep. Yeah, I only have soft control over the game here. I know exactly what beats me. I've tried to wiggle into spots where I can get through some of this stuff, but I don't know. Maybe there's a world where they boarded out the Brazen Borrower and they're on very few outs. I don't know. Brazen Borrower is real good against artifact BS though. Oh, right. I guess I do this first. Alright, now, do I activate Osmore? Nah. I think this is getting shut off. I think this is more annoying than Osmore. Yeah. Kind of where I thought we were at. That means I probably just need to, like, cast this Overchase Daredevil when I have the opportunity to. There's also a world where I very much end up winning or losing this game based on timeout. Based on how this game is currently going. We're pretty much dead even on time, and my opponent has more ability to do things like cantrip. So I think I would win if time starts to come into question. But like we are basically in a situation like, can my opponent get this ensnaring bridge out of play and then kill me in one shot before I can replay the ensnaring bridge, or can they like bounce the ensnaring bridge and then counter it on the way back down? This is a lot of mana. Holy fuck! All right, that's not a very traditional card. That's quite good. Yeah, so I'm gonna block 3 of these things. I'll take damage from this one, which means I am guaranteed dead. All right, GG's. By force was brutal there. All right, I've kept my opening hand here, which has sort of a powerful Urza Saga start with like Goblin Engineer, looting, backup. But my opponent said good luck, have fun in chat, and then mulled to 5, so we're probably playing against a degenerate combo deck, which we're just not going to be good against, like pre or post sideboard. So that's bad news for me. You ready for Reanimator? Oh, Doomsday? Oh, wait, was it straight up just like a Delver start that mulled to 5? It was. All right. The fail prophecy meter has failed today. Okay. I don't mind this. This is just going to make these constructs large. The first one's pretty likely to just die to a lightning bolt when or if my opponent attacks with this Ragavan. Could die to an unholy heat. Okay. So if I were the opponent here, I would be looking for like a wasteland or a lightning bolt, probably. Okay. All right, so they found their lightning bolt or equivalent. Don't expect this to work. Oh, straight up? Yeah, we can trade. Absolutely. Like, you can have another Ragavan in hand or whatever, but I'm kind of good with the direction things are trending here. Sure. 3 card types in graveyard currently. Sorcery would be the easiest one to get that's currently missing. That's really hard to cast here. Like, despite the fact that I have a bajillion mana. Alright, so there's my critter. Just Spellbomb and kill this, or do I get Mox Opal to make my mana better? I think I'm just going to kill this. Goodbye, Dragon Rage Channeler. I have a narrow window to kill that, so I might as well take it. Now, notably, playing in this way does mean that this Construct token is vulnerable to a Lightning Bolt effect, but kind of based on how my opponent played last turn, I don't actually think they have a Lightning Bolt effect. Otherwise, like, my previous Construct would not have traded with the Ragavan would have gotten in the red zone. So I think this is fine. And then next turn, I may be able to get this Construct out of Lightning Bolt range. We'll see. Okay. Plateau is not what I'm looking for. I think I'm going to lead on Faithless Looting before doing anything else. Just to see if I can do something with this hand. Okay. Not the stuff I'm looking for. I probably just bin 2 lands here. I think fetch lands. I think I don't want to be taking damage here. It's possible the Angel of Ruins should just go directly to the bin, though. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Alright. Let's go land. Take this moment to make my attack. Not much, but it's honest work. My opponent's Urza Saga Construct tokens are likely to kind of outpace my own. Okay, my Goblin Engineer resolved, which is cool. Again, I've kind of got to read that I don't super think my opponent has a Lightning Bolt. What do I want here? The Ensnaring Bridge, probably. I could take the Pithing Needle and just like stop my opponent's Urza Saga from getting a second Construct token. But I think just binning that Ensnaring Bridge and making that a constant threat for my opponent is a realistic way to try and win game 1. And then like once I have the Ensnaring Bridge, I try to resolve a smokestack, and that's how I ruin everything. Okay. So I could cast a Faithless Looting and then an Osmore. I am good with that. I'm less good with, like, repeatedly damaging myself via this Ancient Tomb, but that is what it is. Double Asmore. I'll discard one of those and a land. And I'll play a land. Play a Mox Opal. Play an Osmore. We're now getting the long pause from my opponent, so... Oh, wow. I did not feel like this game was that close to over. I'll take it. Opponent gives us the GG. Okay, so what did we do last time? It was... I think these 6 cards. And what went out? I'll probably leave the Pithing Needle in, because like last time around, I definitely wanted to Pithing Needle a Retrofitter Foundry as things went long. And honestly, maybe I should have a Retrofitter Foundry myself. Like, the ones that I make are also just good at attacking through an Ensnaring Bridge, so, like, that's a thing. So maybe... Alright, so we do this. This? Do I just blow all of the Tangle Wires? Blowing all the Tangle Wires makes it so that my Goblin Engineers are a little worse than I'd like. Maybe that's okay. Yeah, I'll go with this. Alright, how's this looking? And doesn't quite do anything. Like, real close to doing lots of things. I don't have a way to discard for Osmore in the first place. So... yeah, let's junk this. Eep. I am mana light, which I do not like. But I have what I've kind of like self-identified as one of my better cards in the matchup, and I have like a non-wastelandable mana source, a recursion source for Underworld Cookbook, and Asmore, which is removal. I think between being on the draw and the Faithless Looting, this will be okay enough to just be a keep. Oh my god, my opponent went to 4? That's rough. Delver does not frequently go to 4 cards. Yeah. Now, they can still start on, like, Volcanic Island into Ragavan, and it will totally not feel like a mulligan to 4. Opponent's taking it in stride, though. Honest question, is the Asmo deck any good? Unsure. I am 1-1 now. Games have been interesting, but very long. Alright, so let's see if my opponent starts on a Ragavan. I'm not scared of a Dragon Rage Channeler start. I'm slightly scared of a Ragavan start. Like, if their 4 cards are like land Ragavan Days, anything else, like, that's still super spooky. Okay, great. We dodged the turn 1 Ragavan. Okay. I do not hate having a Goblin Welder as sort of a backup plan for the stuff that I have going on here. I'm just gonna do this now, because, like, I know I'm gonna do this. Always yield to that. Yes. Now I get that sick F6 value. Ooh. That makes things a little weird. That also makes things a little weird. Alright, so we're going to be more on the Welder plan than anything else right now. Okay, it's going to be weird sequencing. I am going to play a Goblin Welder around a Daze first. I think it's very important that this card resolves. And then I am going to cast this Faithless Looting. Alright, discard this, and this card isn't particularly appealing anymore because of my opponent's Karakas. This is just an awkward, repeatable way of finding food. I don't think that's what I'm about right now. I am looking to find, like, an angel or a God Pharaoh statue and dump it into play. Ooh, do you have Prismatic Ending? Do have Prismatic Ending. Alright, am I playing around Daze? I think I'm playing around Daze since I have the 4th land in hand already. And I will go ahead and thin the deck of a card. I'm already going to be very wastelandable. I'm going to go ahead and pick up a scrub land, you know. Make my opponent think. I fetched because I'm planning on cracking this food at the end of my opponent's turn. Ooh, another Prismatic Ending. Sure. Actually, now that that has happened, I need this as my second artifact so that Ether Grid can actually do damage every turn. Okay. Alright, yeah, now my Aether Grid should resolve the vast majority of the time unless my opponent's final card is a Hydroblast specifically. Alright, the Aether Grid. I guess it could have been like a Spell Pierce too. Spell Pierce isn't super common right now. Like, obviously it's a thing that still exists, but a lot of the flex slots are going towards things like Prismatic Endings and, you know, your Pithing Needles, your Retrofitter Foundries, those sorts of things. Ooh. A Murktide. This Ensnaring Bridge is going to look real hot. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, so I'll ping my opponent here. Cool. I guess I'm just going to play this. Like, there's that Faithless Looting to think about, but... yeah, we're not going to return that this turn. Actually, I will. That's fine. I can hardcast it right now, or bin it with looting. So, in good news, like, my opponent has used 2 Prismatic Endings already, so my Ensnaring Bridge is at least somewhat likely to stick around. Alright, and we'll do the end of turn, ping my opponent for 1. Great Furnace. This is an artifact, so this is actually not a bad draw. Yeah, I straight up just think I'm going to keep the 2 artifacts here. Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll lose 1 damage this turn to cast this, but then I don't have to continuously worry about returning it for Ensnaring Bridge later. Alright, another turn with no moves from my opponent, so we just continue the bleeding. Do I even cast this turn? I probably don't. Just hold this for a turn and then try to convert other cards into something more meaningful. Not like I have an active Goblin Welder or anything. I have 5 artifacts currently, so I only get 2 pinging damage a turn. That's fine. That's extra selection. So I will just kill that with an Aether Grid at the end of my turn. Pew pew! Pew pew! This is now a fine time to just use this Faceless Looting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I could just hardcast this next turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I can hardcast this next turn. Yeah, I am good with that. It will straight up block the Murktide Regent as stats currently stand. Now, if my opponent plays another Murktide Regent, then things get a little more interesting. Then we'll end of turn do the laser twice, bringing my opponent to 13. Oh, this is just better to cast. And I can cast this around a daze. Oh, and it resolved. Oh, baby. We're doing stuff. I like this. Yeah, I'm now at the point where I might be able to race the Murktide Regent even if Ensnaring Bridge gets answered. Like, I have 4 damage in play, plus 1 damage a turn, plus another, like, 3-ish damage from the Aether Grid itself. Yeah, this is cool. I like, have to cast this, right? Like, I'm obligated under law to try to cast a 7-drop if I can legally try to cast a 7-drop. It's very... Oh my god. Goodbye, Urza Saga and Pithing Needle. Hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. This is fun for me. I am enjoying this. Alright. We have gotten the GG from the opponent here. They now know their Murktide can't attack in. Like, Underworld Cookbook is going to make it so my Ensnaring Bridge gets better. They're under a lot of damage. What a lock. Okay, without colored mana, I don't think this hand is keepable. Like, an early Tango Wire is cool and all, but I will do so much damage to myself that I probably just end up killing myself on, like, that stuff alone. This hand is fine. This is going to be one of those hands where I just, like, bank on an Urza Saga working. I will junk one of the 2 Tangle Wires here. And I'll lead on the Urza Saga into a cookbook. We are likely playing against something 4-color loam-ish, just kind of like based on my opponent's preferences. But this opponent has a pretty decent range, so we'll see. There's also a world where I sequence this differently and play a Great Furnace and Underworld Cookbook on 1, and then go Ancient Tomb Tangle Wire on 2, and play like Urza Saga on 3. Okay. Red Gamble. Ragavan. Interesting. Alright. I think this is just going to be Ancient Tomb Pass. I'm kind of waiting to see whether or not I get, like, wastelanded before I, like, decide whether or not I'm just going to, like, go absolutely all in on making these critters as big as possible. Alright, there's my 2/2, which I'll turn into a 3/3. Am I going to get Abrupt Decayed? I'm going to live through a Punishing Fire. Oh, Swords to Plowshares? Yeah, that's fine. I don't think I just want to immediately grow some of this stuff. I think I'm good with that. I'll go to 21. Back down to 19. On it, just junked an Ancient Tomb, which honestly I didn't want to draw, so I'm good with that. Okay. Engineer's not bad. I don't think it's nuts or anything, but it's not bad. What am I picking up here? Pick up a Pyrite Spellbomb and just answer the Ragavan straight out. I do really wish I had a Retrofitter Foundry in this deck, though. Yeah, I'm gonna pick up a Pyrite Spellbomb. I'm not going to fire this off immediately, because then my opponent could, like, dash in a new one. But it is my intention to answer this Ragavan with this Spellbomb. I'm definitely afraid of getting wastelanded. My hand's kind of clunky, and I need a lot of mana to do the lines that are going to be respectable. Probably need to Plane Cycle next turn to hit my land drop. Okay. Like a knight? Yeah, it's a knight. Sure. Okay. Ooh, now it becomes more tempting to just, like, kill the Dryad Arbor over the Ragavan. But Ragavan is Ragavan. I should probably just kill that. Although this is the only forest they currently control. But there's also Life from the Loam to think about. I'm gonna kill the Ragavan. I do need to start thinking about whether or not I am just going to, like, start dumping cards into this. I think the answer is no. Alright, so let's Plane Cycle. And I'll pick up a Plateau with that. Now, I think it's time to start looking at Goblin Engineer. We're gonna go yes. I can't return a Smokestack. Pithing Needle's interesting. I'm gonna grab Ensnaring Bridge. I'm gonna send this construct in. And then grow it by 1 with Tangle Wire. So we're both gonna be at 15. My opponent has the next attack if they want it, but I think in a lot of worlds my opponent is actually gonna end up spending their turn doing something like wastelanding me. Or starting to assemble a Merit Lodge combo or something like that. Oh. Strong. Losing access to that bridge is scary. That means that if my opponent is playing a Dark Depths package in their deck, I'm going to be very soft to that. Okay, there is a way that I can discard a card. Is there a Sejiri Step in there too? I get to play around that? I don't know that I get to play around that. Actually, it's fine. Alright. Discard this. Make a food. Play an Asmore. Alright, so it's resolved. I get to fetch up a new cookbook. And then I start getting into a weird situation where I have to think about, like, optimizing my damage versus, like, hiding the fact that I have a Soul Guide Lantern in hand. Alright, so I pick up a cookbook. I'm gonna hide the Soul Guide Lantern, I think. Maybe I shouldn't have tapped that, because I could have put in Tangle Wire. I think I fucked that up. Yeah, I did. Alright, so I'm gonna send in with this. And see how my opponent reacts. I'm expecting... Nope. Nope. I expected did not actually occur. Move a land there. Now I want to go to my opponent's end step and see if they activate this knight. A Hole Breacher. That's a little wild. Alright, I guess I just sit on Asmore for a turn cycle then. Yeah, that's fine. I think I take this opportunity to try and junk the knight. This is 6 damage to itself. So unless some weird crop rotation level shenanigans start coming into play, this should be covered. And I also just have, like, a Tormod's Crypt in play. I do wish I had tapped my mana differently so I could have put the Tangle Wire in play off of Goblin Engineer. I think that would have pretty much locked it up. And instead, I think my opponent has a live turn here where they can try to wiggle out of this. A lot of weird moving parts in this deck. I enjoy that about this deck, to be fair. Alright, are we looking at, like, a prismatic ending here? Oh, that's bad. Probably gonna be like a Collector Oof. Alright. Ooh, a scavenging ooze. Okay. So now they can eat my tangle wire. Only exiles. Opponents' graveyards. I am just going to sit on my Soul Guide Lantern because there's a decent number of worlds where I end up cashing this for a card in a little bit. Is this better as a food? Probably not. I'm going to go ahead and attack with both of these. Yep, this is fine. I think I'm going to use this opportunity to eat all of the lands out of my opponent's graveyard. So that they can't gain life off the creatures that are going to be in their graveyard. And my opponent can't activate this here, otherwise I get my Tangle Wire. Okay, and they realize that. I will force them to use this mana, though. Oh, wait, hold on. This is not a swap. This is a sacrifice to do that. So that works differently than I want it to. Yeah, that's good then. Ooh, opponent did not... Ooh, small misstep there. Opponent did not eat either Hull Breacher or Osmore. Ooh. That's really annoying. Okay, that's very good. My opponent is now ahead. Technically, I should have tried to sacrifice that to bring back a Soul Guide Lantern. It wouldn't have worked. But it's something that I should have done. Sure. Card is like almost good. I think I just cast it. I'm gonna bash it for 1, try to bring my opponent to 3. And then I play something with 4 power. It just will end up trading with an ooze, though, as of right now. I mean, which is good, because, like, the ooze is the scariest thing on the board. Ooh. I've lost this one. I am, likely not coming back from, like, ooze plus punishing fire, because, yeah, especially now. Yep, so that one turn, like, 3 or 4 turns ago, where I tapped my Ancient Tomb, instead of Great Furnace, just because, like, I was just playing without thinking too carefully. Probably cost me this game. Rough. Yep. This Goblin Engineer is going to get Punishing Fired, but I guess I have to make my opponent spend the mana to do it. Otherwise, I can jump block with this. Yeah. Now my opponent will eat their Hull Breacher. Oh, no, they won't. I mean, I think they have inevitability either way here. Alright, so this eats a Punishing Fire. Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and add my life total a little bit here. I want to gain this life while Punishing Fire is still on the stack. So that they can't use it to return Punishing Fire if they end up getting another mana source. So I'm going to take 6 this turn, and then I'm going to take 6 the following turn and die. Opponent is leaving this Hull Breacher in graveyard. They've had multiple opportunities to take it out and haven't. I think I am going to value the little bit of time on my clock here over anything else. I want Rip Apart. I want Ether Grid. I don't know that I actually want a Pyroblast. It's gonna be fine, and if my opponent has something like Uro in their deck, which is at least somewhat likely, it's a fine answer to it, but like it's gonna be bad against plenty of other things. Like it doesn't do anything versus a Knight, it doesn't do anything versus a Ragavan. Yeah, also like Collector Oof that I'm gonna have to worry about for post sideboard games. I think I might shave like the Smokestacks and an Overchase Daredevil and a Tangle Wire and call that good. So in terms of roles, I feel like my deck is trying to outgrind a lot of other legacy decks, and I feel like my opponent's deck will be just fine at grinding through all of my various BS. So I'm not super hopeful that I'm actually going to win this match. Okay. Opening hand here has the ability of getting a very quick Angel of the Ruins and has like Urza Saga as backup. I think I'm good with where this is at. So I will lead on the Mountain, Welder. I don't think I need to play out the Mox Opal this turn. Okay, that's not a Prismatic Ending mana source. Okay, so this is just going to be a Dryad Arbor. That's fine. Ether Grid. That'll be a great follow-up to what I have going on here. I probably want to cast that next turn rather than make constructs. I need to be very sure, though. I'm always playing this Mox Opal. Ah, making construct seems fine. Yeah, I'll just keep the pressure up in that regard. My artifact count is going to be pretty low. I'll plane cycle, grab this, and then swap these two. We're not gonna blow up my own Urza Saga. And I have just made a 5/7 Angel on turn 2. Now my opponent's deck does have Swords to Plowshares, so like things can happen here. But if things don't happen here, this wins the game a lot of the time. Okay. That's the Swords to Plowshare color. Okay. It's just Prismatic Ending. Just. Okay. God damn it. So concede. Yeah, I am just not going to beat that. My artifacts are outsized by it. My Ether Grid killing Dryad Arbor or Dak Faden isn't happening in this turn cycle. Yeah, yeah, no artifact in my graveyard for me to weld that out. I am just dead to that. Was not playing around Dak Faden. Alright, GG's, I guess. Alright, I've kept my opening hand here. I have to figure out how I want to play it. I can go Urza Saga, Cookbook, Mox Opal on turn 1. Great Furnace turns on Mox Opal on turn 2, assuming that everything goes the way that I want it. What's today's brewski? Food. Alright, we drop this. Drop this. Drop this. I will not be able to cast Faithless Looting here. But I've got Metalcraft covered for next turn. Don't Prismatic Ending me. Takes me off Metalcraft, which is, like, very bad for me. Fuck. In order to maintain Metalcraft, I have to discard a card here. So we're going to bin a Looting, since that gives us some value. Oh, fuck. I could have just done this on my turn and then cast the Faithless Looting. Yeah, it's whatever. I wish I had the other Goblin. Alright, Great Furnace turns on Mox Opal, so I can still make my Construct. We'll see how much removal my opponent has. Yeah. I mean, I still get one pretty respectable size construct, as long as my opponent doesn't like also have a Swords to Plowshares as follow-up or another Prismatic Ending. Things are still okay. Oh, that's very good. It's very, very, very good. Because I can play both of these things this turn. Yeah. Alright, so let's send in for 4. Then I'm gonna play the Engineer first. The Goblin Welder is more valuable, and I don't really want to play it into Daze, but if my opponent has one Force of Will effect, I would rather it be onto this. Okay. Yeah, so like this is good enough to bait a response from my opponent, which is what I'm looking for. Like if this is not going to resolve, I want this to resolve. I'm gonna put a God Pharaoh statue into the graveyard because it's fun. I'm also hoping that my opponent is not playing Terminus with the line that I'm about to take. Since they played Wasteland, I am going to assume that they do not actually have Terminus. But this commits a lot to the board. And it makes it worse if my opponent does have a Daze for a Goblin Welder. But if this God Pharaoh statue gets into play, I don't think my opponent, like, lives. Okay, we have gotten the concession on turn 3. Good stuff. So we should kind of assume that we're probably playing against, like, the blue-red Delver Shell that has white for things like Prismatic Ending. That's kind of the direction that I'm going to be thinking here, and we'll probably board in these same 6 cards that I've been boarding in for, like, Smokestacks and Tangle Wires. Do I want to keep the Pithing Needle? I'm probably going to keep the Pithing Needle. I hate that, like, we've gone the entire league without casting a single Smokestack, but, you know, like, I think it's the weak link here. Like, you need something in game 1 that you can win the game with, like, once you've locked someone behind an Ensnaring Bridge, and Smokestack will do that, but, like, it's so dreadfully slow. Yeah, let's start off like this, and I can make some adjustments if I feel like that's necessary. Okay. There is a degree of risk associated with this line. This is a hand where if I keep this and I make it to turn 2, I just get a turn 2 God Pharaoh statue. I'm going to keep this and hope that between Faithless Looting and 2 draw steps, I will hit another land so that I am not just going to be like Stone Cold Dead if the Goblin Welder ends up dying. Okay, my opponent kept on 6. Tropical Island. Sure. Alright. So this is sort of like gate 1. Like, is this going to live? Blue Elemental Blast. It is not. My hand becomes considerably worse now. Okay. Ooh, so we might actually be playing against Bant with Wasteland. Alright, how am I playing this turn now? I also wish I had 1 Tangle Wire right now. I think I'm going to play Faithless Looting prior to making a land drop. I just need to kind of smooth out what's here a little bit. Okay. How do I play this? I think I want to hold up Pyroblast. So the land drop that I'm going to make is Plateau. And I intend on winning the game with an Ether Grid backed by a Pyroblast. But like, this stuff here is probably the least relevant stuff right now. And I'll keep this in hand so that I can cast this when this game goes long. All right. Yeah, that's effectively just a cantrip. I have a Pyroblast if my opponent goes for an Uro. Yep. I'll counter that so that they don't just get a 6/6 that gets to chill there. Okay. I don't think I need to play around Daze anymore, so I'm not going to play Ancient Tomb this turn. Opponent says worth a try. I mean, I agree. I know my opponent's playing Wasteland, so I'm just going to grab Plateau here. And let's ram out this Ether Grid. It's not currently a win condition. Like, currently this Ether Grid is worth 0 damage. But it'll be worth a prismatic ending or a decent amount of damage over time. More realistically, I'm probably going to put this God Pharaoh statue into play and hope that it kills my opponent. Probably not literally. All right. I'm always tapping Ancient Tomb this turn. Always tapping Ancient Tomb this turn. So one of these is going to put my Ensnaring Bridge into the graveyard. And the other one of these is going to put a Soul Guide Lantern into the graveyard. That way, if the Uro does not get into play in this turn cycle, I can stop it from getting into play. My opponent has a basic Plains, so they currently don't have all the mana that they need, or the number of cards in graveyard. Ah, shit. Yep, I mean, that's fine. It becomes less fine if my opponent gets the Uro into play this turn as well. Okay, that means that they can't do that anymore under normal realistic circumstances. And I am now hoping that I top deck a land so I can slam this God Pharaoh statue. It might not be enough, though. I lost access to the Ensnaring Bridge, which I was planning on hiding behind. We shall see. I have straight up no available plays in this turn cycle, other than attacking for 2. Alright, let's send in. I don't care if I lose one of these to, like, an Ice Vanquaddle or something. Actually, we're not at Death Touch time yet. Ah. Yeah, I'm just going to straight up lose to a pair of Endurances, clocking me for 6 a turn. Yeah, like... And now, like, the Uro comes back as soon as my opponent gets that land drop as well. Yeah. Alright, I think I'm comfortable calling it there with the Ensnaring Bridge no longer in the deck. Alright, now that I know my opponent's on Bant, I want to change my sideboarding. I'm going to go ahead and remove the Pithing Needle. I'm going to remove the Pyrite Spellbomb. Rip Apart is medium. I think I value the Tangle Wires more. I want to constrain my opponent's resources. Do I board the Smokestacks back in? I think they are painfully slow. My opponent's not going to be super great at actually producing permanents most of the time. With multiple Endurances in the deck, the whole Overchase Daredevil thing does lose out on some oomph. Alright, fuck it. It's the last round, right? Let's get these Smokestacks and Tangle Wires back in there and see if I can do something meaningful with them. This hand is not overly exciting, but I think it is a keep. This is probably not an Osmore that I play out immediately. I think I attempt Goblin Engineer for Tangle Wire early on. Alright. Great Furnace, Cookbook, go. Okay. I'm not gonna discard here. No, let's just start on an engineer. The looting is tempting. But in order for the looting to just be insane, I have to get multiple hits. Like, for the looting to be insane, I would need, like, a Goblin Welder plus an Angel or something like that. I don't think is super realistically going to happen. Okay, that's quite good. Ah. That's a little rough. That means that Asmore is just a awkward 3-3. That means my Goblin Engineers won't trigger either. Alright, let's loot. Yikes. Get deeper here. Loot again. I mean, Ether Grid's not bad. How am I beating this Urza Saga? I think I'm beating it with Ensnaring Bridge, so I think I'm going to keep Ether Grid and Ensnaring Bridge, and that becomes the way that I'm going to try to win. Alright, things are bad. Like, my opponent's going to have things like Prismatic Ending that can just answer my permanents. And it also means that, like, if one of these two things doesn't resolve, I'm not actually in all that good of shape. Sure. That's not a draw I want. I'm going to play the bridge first. Because my opponent will make this Urza Saga token, it'll be a 2-2. My opponent will make another, it'll be a 3-3. My opponent will tutor out something out of their deck, it'll be a 4-4. And so those Urza Saga tokens aren't going to get in through this immediately, and my opponent does not have white mana for a Prismatic Ending yet, JK. Doesn't matter. Alright. Yep, life's bad. Yeah, also probably have to discard this God Pharaoh statue for a food right here to just, like, get it out of my hand in case I can bring the Ensnaring Bridge back later with a Goblin. See if my opponent gets a Pithing Needle or a Retrofitter Foundry or what. Sure. Yep, that's bad. That's worse. Alright, so I'm gonna take 4, go to 16, and be dead in 2 turns, and get Wastelanded. Not get Wastelanded, that's super surprising. Alright, with the Ensnaring Bridge gone, I just don't think that I beat this. I'm gonna go ahead and concede here. GG's. Maybe I should have mulliganed that hand. Overall thoughts on the deck list? Decisive Like, Tanglewire and Smokestack feel too slow for Legacy. Like, we never got to do the cool thing where, like, we play a Tanglewire, we weld it out repeatedly and lock an opponent down that way. Like, we played against decks that potentially had access to days, making, like, casting something like a Smokestack kind of scary. I almost wish I just had, like, more oomph in the initial turns. Like, if I had more ways to just, like, oops, I accidentally did one of these things early on. Like, I feel like if we can do something like that, where if I put something in play, it's probably going to win me the game. It's better than these soft lock pieces. I definitely didn't sideboard optimally throughout this league. Like, I was very unsure whether or not how many Tangle Wires I should be keeping, and, like, when I cut all those Tangle Wires, the Goblin Engineers became worse, because if you look at the pile of things that they bring in, it's kind of weak at that point. So, like, there's a decent number of slots for the food package in this deck, right? Like Osmore, Cookbook, Overchase, Daredevil. Like, that's 12 slots. And those 12 slots are things that don't really work towards the Welder Engineer plan. So this has two ideas stapled together, and the overall result is something that's fine. You know, I would probably expect to do 3 or 3-2 with this deck playing it most of the time. But I think, and this is something that didn't really come up very much in this league, but I think that we're going to be pretty soft to combo, just, like, kind of looking at, like, what I have access to in the 75. I think we're going to lose to combo a lot, and the games against fair decks, like Blue-Red Delver or any sort of, like, 3-color Prismatic Ending pile, I think are going to be pretty tough. I think this leaves the deck in a boat where it is a fine playable deck that, like, you can pick up and have some fun with, but I don't know how competitive this thing truly is. I think there is a lot of room to muck around with this, and this is definitely one of the better food iterations that I've played. Like, because you can do powerful things with Welder as well. But I think figuring out the balance of like how many of each one of these effects do I play and what is the supporting cast for this food package, I think that's really tough, and I don't think people have really figured it out in Legacy yet. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please click the like button before you go. It's the easiest way to support me for free. If you're really enjoying this deck, check out the comments, or not the comments, the video description for the deck list, as well as my donation information if you want something spicy on the channel that you've brewed up. Have a great rest of the day. See ya.